Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode. Hello, Aoife, how are you?
Hello, hello. I'm good. Another good one. I'm glad to be back. This is exciting.
Yes, even my dog's barking in the background. They're so excited that you're back. Can you hear them?
I'm glad they recognize the voice clearly.
Yeah, they're so excited. Oh, well. So, this time we're going to talk about the circle of influence, the whole horse approach, the rider's fit relationship. And nobody better than you can definitely help people to understand how important that is. From my point of view, we are going to look at um, how important is that the saddle fits and is balanced. I mean, when people talk about balance, that's such a big word, and it's amazing how quick the horse can change his or her balance by just shifting different group of muscles. And I believe that's the same with humans, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yep. A shifting of center of gravity.
That's right. So here we have the episode 1. Here we talk about how rider's balance affect the horse. We focus on the human-horse relationship, discuss on how an imbalanced rider can throw off the horse, short and long-term consequences of imbalance of both horse and riders, and last not least, significance of the rider's balance for equine welfare. Now, because we are worldwide and we have people listen to us from all kinds of different riding disciplines, that the question is, how should we sit on the horse? Because we heard the term chair seat. Bottom left, we have this good example when somebody sits at the table, desk, or dinner table, you're sitting on the chair. And when we would draw imaginary line from shoulder, hips to heels, that's not happening. Also often referred to a toilet seat. Why? Because sometimes the rider feels off balance and leans forward, but the bottom is far back, the toes turned out. And we see this quite often in treeless saddles or bareback riding. Now, people get very offensive when I say treeless saddles or bareback riding. But the fact is that you cannot be a balanced rider on a horse without a saddle. Now, people say, yes, I can. Well, you can't, because the rib cage of a horse is always wider than the pelvis of a human. Unless you're out of a horse what is that small that your hips and ribs, your pelvis is wider than the horse's ribs, I guess you shouldn't ride that horse. So when when we look at certain disciplines and styles, we face sometimes the challenge of protecting the horse and yourself, your own body, from long-term damage. Now, people say, does that mean I can't ride bareback ever again? Of course you can. Of course you can have fun with your horse, play around, go for a swim with your horse. But every day, consistently riding for half an hour, 45 minutes in a bad body is, of course, a massive problem. So if I have this sense of imbalance, Aoife, especially when I work all day on my desk, I drive to the horse. So often the people are not very aligned in their spine due to their circumstances of work or long drive. How do you find in your field you come across when you have students or requests in your field?
So I think I'm understanding the question as, based on the work that I do with riders, how much do I come across riders who are affected by lack of awareness or misalignment, which is affecting their center of gravity or the horses. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay, so I think number one, it's important for us to understand that how the horse is set up, and then we'll go right back up to the top, and then we'll understand how we are. So the horse carries about just under 60% of its weight and center of mass at the forelimbs, but we're often asking more of our horses to be sitting back on the hind limbs. So that's not natural of them. What we need to do, and most importantly, as you were just talking about, depending on the position, if you're pitched forward, if you're nervous, if you're tight, it's going to bring your upper body closer towards the horse's neck. That's not technically where we want to be. We want to be as centered as possible over the center of mass, which we've talked about before on our previous series about making sure that the saddle is evenly distributed and properly, do I say the word flocked or not flocked? Is that the right word?
That's right. Aligned,
Okay.
balanced, flocked, yeah.
Great. So in that case, once the saddle is taken care of in the right ways, then the rider has to be taken care of. So if we don't understand where we are, depending on what movement and gait we're in, that is going to affect what they have to then shift and compensate for that exact reason. Now, I think we all know that we don't want to add any extra onto our horse, but if we're unaware of these things, then that 58% can become 68% or 62% or whatever it is when it's supposed to be more so of just under 60% for their weight distribution and how they feel most comfortable on their own. So I always say go back to understanding what your body is capable of. And what I see is, as we're looking at in this photo here, we see people in that pitched forward toilet and or chair seat, which is in the diagram on the bottom left here. We want to be able to know and have the ability with our body by being able to retract the shoulders, pulling the shoulder blades down and back together. But if that posterior chain, the core, isn't strong enough, then it's going to lead to that rounding of the body. It's going to lead to that shifting. It's going to lead to a lot of things that are stem from our daily habits, and that is something we don't want to do. So be mindful, for those who are listening and watching, of what your body tends to do, and then also do your best with cross training and stretching and movement and mobility to understand how can I become more aligned on the ground myself, and then also how does that translate into the saddle, which I've already explained.
So Aoife, we heard from you how you explained it's much harder for the horse to carry even more weight if the rider is pitched forward. And of course, the long-term damage goes on their horse's tendon. What about the rider if they keep riding with a posture like this?
It's going to be detrimental to their spine. Let's just start there, right? If they're rounded forward, then gravity is going to push on them. And once again, just like the horse, our head is the heaviest component of our body. And as we in school, we like to talk about, it's attached to a stick. If you were to put a ball on top of a pencil, it's not going to be easy for it to be centered, but you can find it. It's not easy. If your head is jutted forward, which today we see a lot of that with FHP, which is forward head posture, it's going to pull your body in one direction, which would be forward. Now, your footwear also has a big component of how it affects. Most people's shoes slope slightly downward at whatever grade that may be, which is going to naturally pitch them forward. So if we're standing without good posture and we're wearing tools that go on our feet and that we're in all day, i.e. a paddock boot, that also is going to shift your body forward. So just having the awareness, and I know that Sally Swift mentioned this in her classic book, Centered Riding, but it was something of the sort of like a good balanced rider who understands and has good body awareness is going to help the horse free up its movement or something of that sort, which we can tag in a little bit later, but it is along those same lines. And she said that who knows how many years ago. So it goes back to, once again, before we even become equestrians, we have to ask ourselves the question of how much more can I work on my balance, and how much can I improve the imbalances to become more centered.
I absolutely love what you just said. Sorry if I cut you off there, but I wanted to emphasize what you just said. I have to do some work too as the rider, so once we look through all the history books, we want to have the saddle distributed between line 1 and line 5 when it's a Western saddle. and the front flares up, the back flares up. There should be no pressure between line 1 and 2 and 4 and 5. The main contact, where also all the English style sits, is between line 4 and line 2 and line 4. So as you mentioned, we can shift our center of mass back and forth the way our posture, so horse can do it too. But if we align our sternum to the horse's sternum, and this is where the key factor comes in, what you guys are saying, we have to do our part as well. We have to be sitting straight. I love this example, what I heard from one instructor. He says, why don't you ride like you're floating down the river? What are you talking about? Yeah, pretend you're sitting on an oil drum. And if you lean too much this way, you fall in the water. If you lean too much back, the oil tips this way. The slightest movement impacts how the oil will balance, how the oil drum balance you in the water. Now, the water may have some ripples and goes up and down, but what I think is also bad, if you sit on the chair like that all day on your computer, you don't sit on something what goes up and down and walking. You have horses coming underneath you too. And this is why often the seat, what we call as the neutral seat, if you pleasure ride, if you do dressage, we're talking about the standing seat. So on the bottom left, you see a person standing. The only difference between the rider and the person who stands is the weight is either carried on the feet or on the seat bones.
Right.
The spine should stay aligned straight, what gives you the 4 shock absorption in your spine. And then in the horse, as we all know, we want to push our heels down. Thank you for mentioning that with the paddock boots. There's a reason why we push our heels down when we're in the seat. Now, we are hunter, jumper, event rider, or jockey. The only thing what changes is the knee goes forward, the butt goes back, but the sternum will always be underneath or over your ball of the foot.
Yes.
Try this as an exercise. Try to lift your heels and then go into a hunter, jumper, eventer, or jockey position. I guarantee you will have your sternum over the ball of the foot. If you're trying to do it any other way, you're going to fall or you're going to pinch with your knees. So if the saddle is unbalanced or the rider doesn't do, like you said, his part, then we have forces going against the horse, but also against the rider. I love this book from Dr. James Warson, how he says there is such a massive difference between male and female you got it too.
Love this book.
Right? So for me, I can only say I am a tradesman. I wrote international 3-day eventing. I had the luxury or the honor to represent my country in the junior ride and 3-day eventing. And I trusted a lot of expert around me, the farrier, the veterinarian, the coach, and when I come to anatomy, I trust veterinarians, doctors, or IFA when they talk about how important it is that the rider sits correctly. But I can't ignore the physical, massive difference between male and female pelvis. As I was saying, we have differences. When I stand, I'm my feet. If I sit, I'm my seat bones. Of course, you can say, I'm not sitting. I don't do this dressage stuff. I am a hunter. I'm a jumper. It doesn't matter what you are. All of us, even if you're a pleasure rider, have to train the horse. Can you imagine you're riding a young horse, has no clue, and you haven't trained him, and you just go pleasure riding? It's a disaster. It's a suicide note. Yep. So dressage is a French word for training, and it starts off by aligning the seat so that your posture is straight. Now, easier said than done. And I know that we have so much against us. But if you know what I'm talking lately about, I talk lately about the bubble. And I call the bubble the barn. Why? Because the world is in such uncertainty. Economics are down. Like we think, oh my God, what's going to go next? How can I afford my horse? And I'm really, really worried. And most people are too. But here comes the magic. When I go to the barn, I forget everything. I'm in this bubble. All of a sudden, I'm with my horse, and the world is okay. I'm thinking nothing else than
Yep.
this is my safe haven, my bubble. The last I want is a saddle what cripples my horse, and I don't know about it. Or the saddle does not follow those 9 key elements to balance the rider. So let's say you have one of those saddles, and the saddle is balanced to your 9 key points so that your seat can do the pliability and give you the portion. Why is that still such a challenge to ride? Well, as I said, riding down an oil drum down the river is very difficult.
Absolutely.
And the river has its own opinion, so does the horse. So I think the hardest part is, and I've seen this so many times, I see little kids, they want to do so good. They want to do it. They have so much passion and love, adults too, but they're a little bit more limber, a little bit more flexible.
Yes.
So when we age, we're getting stiffer and stiffer. Our joints fall out, and this is where you come in.
Naturally.
And this is where I find it is absolutely crucial that people understand you can have a beautiful trained horse. You maybe have somebody else who trains the horse with you or for you. And then you sit on the horse, come in with your golf cart, sit on your expensive saddle, what fits you perfect. You still have problems because you haven't worked on yourself or you're not making yourself limber. So I like to hear from you, Aoife. What can I tell my customers? I know there is not like 1, 2, 3 exercises and I'm done with it, right? So there is probably a lot of little tips you can give people, or a routine. Is this something you feature on your website? Is this something you help me out here? What can people do?
Absolutely. So understanding what you were just saying, the question is, people want to know exactly what they should or what they can be doing or can do in order for them to reap the benefits of cross training, as well as reap the benefits of being more balanced, being less dead weight, and having a greater body awareness in the saddle so that their horse can move as freely and effectively as possible. You asked, do I have something like this on my website? The answer is yes. It's called the Core Guide. So the Core Guide is going to go over all the major components necessary to understand what the core is and how it affects us in the saddle. And then number 2 is also going to give you specific exercises, i.e. like the dead bug or the bird dog exercise, which are core stiffness, core stability, and core strengthening exercises. So all they have to do is follow these few exercises routinely, and they'll be just fine.
So when we talk about the significance of riders' balance and equine welfare and longevity, so talk to me a little bit about, so the people who listen understand when we talk about balance, right? We keep saying the word balance. What is for a rider in your point of view the right balance?
Excellent. Ooh, what an excellent question. That's multifaceted as well. What I believe we mean as balance, and I do feel as if sometimes the word can get overused, it is the 360-degree approach of knowing where your body is in space. Then it extends over to how much are we able to sit or stand or be as even as possible. Although we all have our imbalances, we want to make sure that we're as closest to center line as possible. As I mentioned just a little bit earlier with how the horse is anatomically set up, we are naturally supposed to be set up a little bit differently. So we shouldn't have one side that we're leaning into more than the other because our head doesn't extend out and we're also not quadrupedal animals or mammals. So when it comes to us and what does balance really mean in the saddle, it is the forward and backwards component of control as well as the side to side component. Now we hear a lot of people talk about dropping a shoulder or a rotation of that shoulder, which will obviously cause a saddle slip. If you're shifted to one side, the saddle's got to go somewhere else. If you're shifted forward and or backwards, leaning too far backwards, that's also going to have an effect on your personal balance as well as the horses. Now, how do we build a 360-degree approach around that? We practice a couple of the exercises that I just mentioned for one, but we also make sure that we're training in all three of our planes of motion, which, keeping it simple, it's forward and backward, side to side, and rotational, which is exactly what we do in the saddle, no matter what your discipline is. Dressage is 360 degrees, hunter jumpers 360 degrees, and so are our Western disciplines as well. For example, reining, that's where we have rollbacks and we have circles and different patterns for that reason. So practicing exercises or making sure that your whole core program is holistic in that way is going to truly make the biggest difference in what you're able to feel and understand, going back to that barrel down the water or the river or whatever the analogy that you were just using. You're going to understand what, when, and why to use the right musculature at the right time to counteract the water in that analogy and or the horse's movement. Let's say it goes to the side randomly because it sees a plastic bag that doesn't exist in the arena or outside, or should I say doesn't exist at our eyesight. And or
Yeah.
we need to be able to go along with that movement and use just enough leg and oblique or low back or rotation to stay in the saddle without pulling too hard or being off centered.
Yeah. So if I want to know more, is this the best to reach you on your website? There's a contact and I can get more information on it. I want
Absolutely.
to share a beautiful story with you
Thank you.
because I belong to a club since 2006 called Cinephone. And Cinephone was put together with top Olympian riders who find the cruelty or trying to fight the cruelty against horses in horse shows.
Mm,
We see horses with overextension. And when the horse gets pulled their nose so much down, we also call it hyperextension,
yeah.
the horse becomes extremely painful. The whole demeanor looks horrible. And not fun, but the interesting part is if the horse gets pulled in such a frame, not only does the horse falls mainly on the forehand, the rider starts to grip with the thighs and got a counterbalance to lean back.
Absolutely.
So almost ride the horse with a hollow back. So there's picture flooding the world, the scene since the 20 years, how horrible hunter jumpers ride or dressage riders. They exist in both sports.
Mhm.
And to the part that the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, is thinking of banning the equestrian, not banning, like get rid of the equestrian in the Olympics 2023. Now that would be detrimental to this sport. So just last month, at the third large horse show, or one of the largest horse show in the world, the CEO in Aachen, in Germany, there is a rider. And this rider was better than the German. But the judges placed the German first. For the first time in history, the German booed the German. That is unheard of.
Right.
Right? For Germans to not stand behind their man or woman, it's unheard of. But here's the beautiful part. The person who should have won had the horse never behind the vertical. The horse
Mm,
was in balance. And guess what? The rider was in balance.
right.
So it was such a harmonious thing. Needless to say, the next 2 days he won everything because the judges obviously, maybe we need to really judge and not be so
Subjective.
biased.
Yes.
So the good part is, if this is a turn, this is finally a turn to the better, then the equestrian sport maybe has a chance to survive in the Olympic. Because once it's out of the Olympic, what do you think is going to happen next?
Yeah.
Right? So we got rid of so many species in this world. What's one more? But the horse is a spirit animal. And remember I said the bubble? Who wants to fight the horse? For me, I'm talking about from a riding training, but also from a saddle. You and many, many people who understand it's a partnership. You know, one of our first points today was all about the relationship between the horse and the rider. I think many people don't know, especially the heavier set people, don't know how much lighter you can be if you have core strength and follow Aoife's. I don't want to belittle your stuff, but I find it fun, easy to follow. It's not rocket science,
Yeah.
but it takes commitment, doesn't it?
It does. And to add to that point of what you mentioned with Aachen and that leading into where we are today, I'm glad that they were booed in that case to say, you know what, in this situation, no, there was someone who was better and they were doing the right thing for not only the horse, but also for the sport
That's right.
by respecting it and honoring it in that direction. Then you went into how that continues over to the rider being as soft and as
Yes.
tactile in an interesting way, but also understanding where they're supposed to be. So that leads me to what you also said, which is thank you, a good compliment. It's not supposed to be complicated. It's not supposed to be complex. Training is supposed to be performance based. That's it. How you get there is the number one differentiator on who could be either better or is getting a greater result.
Yes.
And for me, if it isn't simple, if it isn't consistent enough, then we're not. If we're chasing flashy, cool, brand new, intricate things, then we're going to continue to have a problem in people understanding how to use their body, improving their motor control, and then also becoming stronger in the ways that are necessary, not only for their body, but also for their journey for the next who knows how many years.
Yeah. See, what I liked about the whole thing is when you look at the rider's face, he was totally relaxed. He was in balance. He was in harmony. He had fun. He looked good. Sure, he was focused. And of course, we have people who nitpick now at this as well. And sure, we have people who train the classical way and say, oh, that could be much better. The horse was chewing so much. I think if he would have ridden the way the majority of people who are against the brutality would ride, the industry wasn't ready yet. He does it very slowly. I think he has done a very amazing job. And what I like the most about it, it moved you when you watch that. And it's not because the horse was just like, because it looks like the rider had fun. He was sitting there. He was one with the horse. Isn't this what we all want? So do your part. Check out Aoife on aoifefit.com. Do your part. Check us out on how the saddles has to be properly fit to the rider in order to fit the horse properly. You all say, oh, so long it fits my horse, I can ride in everything. No, you can't.
Right.
Simple thing you just mentioned. If the paddock boot has heels, we automatically put our balance
pitch forward. Yep.
Right? And that's just one little heel. So anyway, Aoife, as usual, I tremendously enjoyed our conversation. I hope that we give people some thoughts and some ideas. I mean, you're easy to reach. Your program is so much fun, and we all, you know what I said when you and I meet, what is in for me? We all listen to the radio station, right?
Yes.
So why am I talking to you? Because my saddles will last longer and fit longer to the horse and rider if the rider is fit as well. So thank you so much for making my job easier.
Well,
and most of all, making the horses' jobs easier.
Yeah, want to make their lives even better each and every day, and this is an interesting alternative way to do that. So, thank you as well for part 2 of our series here, and I'm looking forward to the next one. And I pray that everyone is able to really draw something slightly different from this one than the work that we've done previously.
Okay, can't wait to see you. Have a good day.
Bye now.